I just have trouble understanding why this seems so hard. It just feels like they're not okay. At the risk of at the risk of sounding like an overbearing parent, I just feel like they're not applying themselves.
Oh my goodness. Hello and welcome to Steam Powered Movies. I am one of your hosts. My name is Mike, and I am here with...
Hi, my name is Dana Fraedrich. I am a steampunk fantasy author, and also feeling rather confused.
well, that state of confusion I think is natural because we just watched the 2004 film Van Helsing, written and directed by Stephen Sommers, starring Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale. Not to be confused with the 2016 TV series Van Helsing, the 2023 movie Van Helsing, the 2021 Bram Stoker's Van Helsing, or even 2004's also The Sexy Adventures of Van Helsing.
Is this just like stuff we're going to be adding to the podcast eventually?
No, but you could say that this Van Helsing character, he gets around the movies.
Oh my gosh. This is what I forgot how bonkers this movie was, but also like, you've never actually read Dracula, have you?
No.
You need to understand.
It's a book, right?
Oh my gosh. Deep breaths, everybody. Okay. Yes, it's a book. Bram Stoker, 1897. Oh my gosh. Okay. This is going well.
This movie is set before that year.
Yeah.
The book was written about Dracula.
You need to understand, Van Helsing is the name of the doctor in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like, he's got a pretty small role, although it is vital. Like, he just currently, suddenly comes out with like, oh, by the way, I know how to fight vampires. Also, I'm a doctor. Like, he is a bit of a surprise character in that book, but boy, like, this character is just like run away from the original.
Yeah. They built a whole backstory and a lore and brought in kind of every other kind of monster lore.
My gosh.
This movie is a lot.
This movie is so much. I forgot how bonkers this film is.
It is fairly bonkers. And you say you forgot because we've seen this movie before.
We did. We saw it years and years ago.
Did we see it when it came out?
No. It came out in, I think, 2004?
2004, yeah.
I don't think we were together yet. I mean, we were friends, but I don't think we were together yet.
We may have seen the theater,
I remember watching it with you, though, and us both being like, what did we just watch? And that's kind of how I feel now as well.
I think we had the same experience twice.
Yeah. So I want to say up front, this film is very good for drinking.
Oh.
It's a very good drinking film.
Oh, yes. And that we did.
And yeah, so we've had a couple of drinks.
So,
well, I am out of drink, and that's on you.
No, I think it's on you for not conserving. But anyway, let the listener beware that is our current state.
This is very much a pub chat style where, in case you're new to this podcast, we get together, we watch a film together. Sometimes we have a couple of drinks. Sometimes we don't. Tonight, again, this movie is very much a drinking movie. We paused it in the middle to make drinks.
It was a requirement.
It was. It's also very much a popcorn film. Like, popcorn is a really just like nice thing to have during this bonkers film.
It has a lot. Should we introduce the podcast? I will say this is Steam Powered Movies, where Mike and Dana, we watch a steampunk film, and then we talk about it. That's pretty much the entire premise.
We're not movie critics. Like, we're not, super serious or whatever. But, we kind of give our opinions on it. We just give our takes. Maybe they're trash takes. Maybe they're great takes. Who even knows? But we're here. We're talking about it. We'd love to talk with you about it. Feel free to join in the conversation online, whatever. It's all good.
I mean, all of my takes are incredibly amazing and the best, but
not according to some of the reviews we've had. But anyway, as far as the steampunk part of this, I should explain in case anyone is out there is not familiar. Steampunk is a sub genre of sci-fi. It's generally set in like Victorian setting, very much that like Victorian time frame ish, because Queen Victoria reigned for an extremely long time. So that's a broad number of years.
Sure.
But generally speaking, kind of in that Victorian era, technology of that same time frame with some artistic extrapolation, shall we say. And that's basically what we do.
Right. And that brought us to this film, Van Helsing.
This has been on our list for a while.
It has. It's on several lists of steampunk movies.
I will say
that
you
are
can
out there on the interwebs.
quote unquote greatest steampunk films. Sorry, everyone.
Well, it's definitely one of the steampunk-ish films that exists.
It is very steampunky. I'll give it that right off the bat.
Okay, so what makes this film steampunky to you, Dana?
We're gonna go out of order. Often we talk about this at the end of how steampunk this is and how it makes it. I will say we have a myriad of gadgets. We have Frankenstein's monster who has steam powered knees, which was very cool.
Yeah,
I actually didn't
noticed
realize that the first time we watched it.
Me
so
either.
that was quite cool.
I was looking for it now, though.
Yeah, we have saw blades that how are they powered? We don't know, but they're extremely cool looking. We have telescoping stakes. We have Gatling, or not Gatling guns, but what do you call them?
Yeah, it's like a Gatling gun.
No, wrong thing.
Crossbow, you mean?
No, I'm talking. Well, the repeater crossbow is very cool and also in my list.
Yeah, I have
grappling
that on mine
gun.
Oh,
That's what I'm
yeah.
going for. Grappling gun. So yeah, we have gobs and gobs of gadgets. Love all of those things.
The
we
gadgets
also have
are quite cool.
Yeah, and a kind of handheld sunburst something or other. They even say I don't know what it's for. We'll just have to see. And then it miraculously is available and there.
I've been working on it for 12 years. I don't know what it's for.
Yeah,
of course, it's going to be a key player in the plot later on.
Look, Carl is my favorite character. I'm going to just cover it.
Really?
Oh, he is. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, who's your favorite character?
We're going to have a competition on this, maybe.
Okay, go on.
It's not my favorite. I don't know. I might want to save it for later.
Okay, fine. Well, I'm going to say right off the bat then. I'm just going to show my cards. Carl is my favorite of all of them. And so
he is the most a real person in the entire film.
Yes, he is. I'm a sucker for a sassy sidekick character.
Mm-hmm.
That's often my favorite character in a lot of things.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah. Because the sassy sidekick character, their stakes often aren't as high, so they get to be a little bit more of a wild card.
Mm-hmm.
So they're usually my favorite character for that reason.
Yeah, and he's kind of the fish out of water in this movie because he's a behind the scenes science guy, and then Van Helsing at the beginning of the movie is you're coming out in the field with me. He's but I'm not a field agent.
Yeah, no, and right off the bat, I want to say this movie is trying to do a lot of things, and it tries to do kind of like the 007 James Bond thing.
Wow, funny you say that.
Yeah?
Because in my notes, I actually wrote down that this is kind of like if James Bond was a cartoon fighting monsters. I swear that's actually what this movie is. Someone was writing a James Bond movie. You've got what's his face, Carl, as the Q with making all the gadgets.
That's what I wrote down too. He is the Q of this movie. We have the presentation. It's a slideshow of This is your mission. This is where you're going. Here's a map. Da da da. We have the M kind of character where he's the Vatican cardinal and telling him about the kind of apprising all of us of the general state of affairs. You've lost your memory. Cool. And then Carl is taking him through these are all the cool gadgets you get and stuff. It's very James Bondy.
Yeah, kind of James Bond Mission Impossible kind of vibes. Kind of sweeping under the rug that this whole thing is premised on. Yeah, the Illuminati is run by the Catholic Church. They run everything in the world to keep us all safe. Yeah, whatever. Forget about that.
It's pretty typical. A lot of these sort of secret society, urban fantasy / Monster Hunter type of things. A lot of them have this sort of storyline where the church is behind it all. Mm-hmm. It's all very hush hush. This is very common. If you read a lot of urban fantasy and Monster Hunter type of things, you'll see this a lot. And the theology is very sus. Oh. Extremely sus.
Oh, but they don't go too into that side of things.
Never mind that this is kind of making the church seem awful. I mean, any more awful than it currently really is, debatable. But it's all very, very questionable.
I don't know. I think the movie portrays it as trust us, we're in charge and we're looking out for you.
We definitely know what's best, and don't look too closely at our politics.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of lore, they really pull in kind of every type of monster lore. I mean, a lot of them they can think of. I noticed at the very opening of the movie, it's a Universal movie with the cool Universal logo catching on fire.
Yeah,
in the
it
intro.
happens.
The very first scene. Pretty cool. I do like it when they incorporate, like a studio logo and stylize it into the beginning of the movie.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a fun fact. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's I love learning things about you. This is cute.
Yeah, some movies, they just bring up the studio logo and it's like, this is the studio, and then they start the movie. Some of them, they kind of put a little twist on it. This one, the Universal logo catches on fire and it turns into a torch that someone is carrying.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah,
Hooray.
well, it's a cool detail. So Universal has the rights to what do they call it? The dark something universe.
Oh, was that a thing then? Is that what they're trying to do now and they're kind of giving up on it?
I think that they've tried to do it like 18 different times. And this Van Helsing movie was like one of the attempts to maybe kickstart that franchise, because you have Dr. Victor Frankenstein. You have Frankenstein's monster. We have Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Sure.
We have Van Helsing, of course. We have Dracula. We have werewolves. The only thing we're missing is like the creature from the Black Lagoon. And then we kind of have the Universal Monster Dark Universe collective all in one movie.
I honestly have to say, like, we've established how to do this. Like, the MCU has sort of like nailed down this pattern.
Well, that came later.
I know, but I just have trouble understanding why this seems so hard. It just feels like they're not okay. At the risk of sounding like an overbearing parent, I just feel like they're not applying themselves.
Oh my goodness. Wow, you went beyond like Monday morning quarterbacking an entire studio to momming them.
Okay. I don't know what Monday morning quarterbacking means. If this is a sports thing, you know that you've gone beyond my knowledge.
Well, yes, it is. But basically, you've been like, I know you guys are the experts, but this is what you're doing wrong.
I'm just saying, like, we have established how to make good movies. We've had a number of very good ones, actually, in like recent memory. I just feel like they're just missing the mark continually. Like they did the Mummy thing with Tom Cruise a couple of years ago. They're still just missing the mark.
Funny enough, you mentioned Mummy. The writer and director of this film, Van Helsing, also behind the Mummy franchise.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Like you're talking about the Mummy with Brendan Fraser.
Yes.
That was so good.
Yeah.
I love that one.
But
maybe we should do that movie for this podcast.
But you can see some of this like stylistic and writing style similarities if you think about it.
The Mummy is so much better.
It is, but it's campy. It's got a lot of like quippy kind of dialogue in it.
It's better.
The transitions from scene to scene don't necessarily make sense.
The Mummy is so much better. And I will stand by that. I stand by Brendan Fraser 100%.
No, I agree. The Mummy movies are really fun. But I think they're the same kind of movie that this is, but this one is just not quite as good. But you can see, like, I could see the director like doing all kinds of things. I don't know if you noticed, but in the first like 15 minutes, we got black and white, right?
He's being very experimental, and I support him trying different things.
Yeah, we got shaky cam. We have monster vision later on in the movie where the brother turns into a werewolf.
Yeah.
And he's stalking his sister, Anna. So we get the monster vision. We get a jump scare. We got Dutch angles left and right. It basically has every kind of style thrown into it.
It does feel like it's trying to do a lot of things.
Maybe to distract us from the completely nonsensical plot.
Ooh, the characterization in this, like I said, this is a very good drinking movie. The character motivations in this, they make no sense to me. Like none whatsoever. Like they're like just complete 180s within 1 minute of characters and like what they say they will and won't do, and then be like, never mind.
Yeah, they do kind of go. I remember one section where Van Helsing is like, "You're right. we should go try and help your brother because the brother tried to come kill Anna, was doing something after he got turned into a werewolf, and she got mad at Van Helsing for trying to kill him. And then he was like, you're right, we should try and go and save him. And then 2 minutes later, he's like, he's not your brother anymore. We need to kill him.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean.
But then she turns around and agrees with him like 5 minutes after that.
I know. It's very back and forth in this. Like, I'm just going to I'm not going to oh, okay. I am not going to harp on the characterization issues in this film because that's going to get very old very fast. Mm-hmm. Suffice to say, characterization in this is rough and it makes no sense to me personally. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think it's very good. Again, this is a very silly film. It almost achieves like not taking itself seriously. I'm jumping around a bit, but like at the end when Anna's I
think jump around a lot.
100%. And when Anna's
if you haven't watched the movie, you're going to be completely lost.
Yeah, just go. If you haven't seen the film, like just go watch it.
Pour yourself a drink or 2 or 5.
Whatever. Yeah. It's a very silly film. But like at the end, Anna actually says like, I think if you're going to kill someone, just do it. And like that was the one moment where I was like, okay, they're actually like owning just all the things that this movie is doing that are so dumb.
And that was the second time that the brides of Dracula were about to kill her, but were monologuing about it.
I wrote down like, are vampires cats? Because they like just play with their prey constantly.
I think this is a great parallel, and future writers of Dracula and vampire fiction should just characterize vampires as cats.
I mean, actually, fun fact, I'm going to get very nerdy. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, so Bram Stoker's Dracula is actually not super original. It's actually a lot of inspiration is taken from Sheridan Le Fanu's 1972 book Carmilla. It's really more of a novella, but that is splitting hairs. And Carmilla appears as a cat-like creature in that book. And so we're actually not too far off.
So you're saying that the characterization of the vampires in this movie is actually very accurate to the source material.
Well, I'm not saying accurate. I'm not going to use that word because that seems like a huge bastardization of that word.
It honors it?
I'm not going to say that either. I'm just saying.
Carries on the spirit of the author's intent.
Still not going to agree with that. But I will say I can see a parallel between the behavior of the vampires and being very cat-like and Le Fanu's Carmilla depiction. I will go that far.
I mean, during the fight scenes, the vampire characters were very blasé about how they were fighting the humans.
Oh yeah, no, they were definitely just not getting down to business.
No,
they were like, I'm just gonna like play with you and throw you around a little bit, very, very cat-like, and not just freaking killing them because they could in a moment they could just kill them, but no.
Although, speaking of killing and throwing people around, the Anna character,
yes.
She should have died like what 20 times?
Like 20 times, 100%. No, and that sort of made her death at the end even less heartfelt. Like I was just like, oh, so this is the thing that's got you. Okay, even though you've gotten slammed into multiple buildings multiple times
and dropped like 20 or 30 stories.
No, I know.
Swung between ropes and things that were not set up ahead of time, just happened to work out.
Sure.
Basically this movie takes like action movie physics and dials it up to like 27.
100%.
It's every single scene has some impossible physics happening.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's incredibly ridiculous.
Yeah.
It again just takes it to the extreme. I couldn't even write down all the examples because it's basically every scene where someone is like jumping or diving or slamming into something. It's everywhere.
But I have to say, this film is very much of its time in a lot of ways. I'm gonna take us back for a moment. I'm gonna take us back to like the early aughts.
All right.
Like
I'm there.
Okay, you're with me?
Yep.
Like
I just started college.
Right. Okay. So like long black trench coats are very much in thanks to like 1999's The Matrix and 2003's Underworld, which also starred Kate Beckinsale.
Yeah.
Like for some reason in this time frame.
A movie I remember being better than this one, but yeah.
Oh, the original Underworld is definitely better than this.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of the same stuff of like very fighty, very, the plot's a little bit loose, but whatever.
Right.
It's better than this, I will definitely say. It is very much of that era of like vampires versus werewolves. And I don't know why this was such a thing. I like made a list of things that happened in this sort of time frame.
Okay.
So like I said, we had The Matrix in 1999.
Yeah.
That like I think that made the long black trench coats very in for the next couple of years.
Yes. I mean the black trench coat was very much a style of the 90s,
yes,
but maybe more
early
reserved
aughts
for like goth kids, or...
Okay, that was like my entire circle.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Right. So like your friends, but
Me
the
and
rest
my
of the
friends.
world didn't think they were cool until The Matrix came out.
Right. And then it was suddenly like, oh no, wait, like this is super hip and stuff.
Yeah, you got to wear
But
Doc Martens and a long black trench coat.
You have to have a certain kind of gothy alt swagger to carry off like a full-length black leather trench coat.
Yeah, for sure.
I never had that particular swagger. I've always been, let's be honest, too adorable for that. But I knew friends and whatnot who could completely carry it off.
I was going to say me too, minus the adorable part. But yeah, I couldn't pull it off either.
Anyway, so on this little trip down memory lane, like I said, Underworld is huge in 2003. That's when it comes out. And then Twilight, the book, came out in 2005. Again,
really?
Vampires
wow,
versus
that long
Werewolves.
ago?
Yeah, it was that long ago. I mean, the movie didn't come out until 2008, but the book first came out in 2005. Yeah. This whole era was like obsessed with vampires versus werewolves, all of that kind of stuff. It was also very much like early aughts were very loosey-goosey about how we address assault. It just happens in films, which it happens in this film too. We have previously discussed how just like, whatever, early aughts were about outright assault.
Yeah, there's some of that.
Yeah, there's some of that in this film. So FYI for anybody who, might need that as a content warning.
Yeah. I mean, I think they kind of try to make Kate Beckinsale's character, Anna, like a capable fighter kind of person.
Oh, boy.
But as soon as Van Helsing comes into the picture, it's like he's the man and he's in charge.
Oh, every dude in this is like, except for Carl, which is part of the reason why he's my favorite, is like super overbearing. But even Carl commits some of these issues. And again, it's very much of that time, that early Oswaldness.
Although I will say when Carl has his rendezvous, he merely like whispers to the lady what he would like. And she's like, sure.
This is still problematic.
A bit.
Because like, she's like, oh my gosh, I saved your life. How can I ever repay you? And of course, repayment is immediately in sexual favors. This is hugely problematic.
Right. And it's also completely unrealistic. Like fantasy world that would even happen in the first place. That someone be like, you saved my life. What? I could do anything in the world for you. It's so ridiculous.
I mean, it is. Let's be honest. That whole thing is to carry the joke of like, well, I'm just a friar. Like that joke happens a couple of times. It's a running joke. It's funny the first time because like the first time is great where he's like, I can curse all I want, damn it. It's like, oh, you're cute.
Right. I'm like waiting for him to drop an F-bomb and it just like
it never really happens.
No.
Yeah. Like the first time was very well done. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I gotta say that like all of the dudes in this are so Byronic. They're all like, I'm against the world and the world rejects me and nobody understands.
I mean, from the pretty early on opening scenes, Dracula is so dramatic.
Oh my gosh. Like he has a whole speech about like, he feels no joy and no pleasure and but like you feel frustration and anger. Like, why are these the two emotions reserved for you? It's just ridiculous.
It is funny to me that the depiction of Dracula is very dramatic.
Oh my gosh.
In that it seems like it's trying to pay like homage to earlier portrayals of the Dracula character because that was in like the 60s and 70s where it was very like stage play drama kind of vibe, but it feels weirdly out of place in this like early 2000s movie with action and jumping around and crazy physics that he is so like Shakespearean in his portrayal and demeanor.
I gotta be honest. Like this movie, it like really brings home both the corn and the ham.
Yes, I agree.
Like this film does not hold back on either of those two elements. And I kind of like it for that. I kind of like how very corny and hamming it up everyone is doing, like everyone on screen. So I do like it for that. But my goodness, like, it's a lot. It's so much.
I imagine the actors on set, doing the scenes and the director directing them to be so dramatic and hamming it up. And at the end of the director says cut and the actors are like, was that good?
I don't know. Again, like it was very much.
And the director's like, yeah, great job. And they're like, are we sure?
It was very much like of that era. I feel like this is maybe just a marker of that time where like we're not going for, realistic. We're not going for drama. Like we are going for like big and bombastic and like blood. I feel things, but not like all of those things. Just anger and frustration and just all of it is just very extra.
Yeah. Even it goes really hard, I would say, starting with the first action scene. When, I guess the second one. The first one is when Van Helsing fights Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
In Paris?
It was in Paris. It was at Notre Dame. I think the insinuation is that he is the purported hunchback of Notre Dame when he's there.
Oh, interesting.
Did you not connect that?
No, I didn't get that connection. Even another lore thing tying together that I didn't think of.
But I'm literature student.
Yeah, but that was just kind of the introduction to Van Helsing. That he fights monsters, so of course he conquers Mr. Hyde.
And of course he's like an anti-hero because like everyone thinks he's a murderer when actually like he's helping everyone. It sort of doesn't make sense when you really think about it deeply, but whatever.
Right. But then when he shows up in Transylvania and he meets Anna, and of course immediately the vampires attack, the vampire wives, that is.
His
so
brides.
They have this crazy action fight scene,
which I will say is from the Dracula book. He's got a handful of brides in the book, and I will say for the time it was a very sexy book.
Yeah,
like the brides like kiss Jonathan Harkness's neck, and that is scandalous for the time period.
But in this film, they like almost kiss him. There's a scene that was very confusing to me. I think we looked at each other at the end of it too, like what just happened?
Which one?
The one where they had the fight and the one bride died, right? And they go back to Dracula and the two brides are like just open mouth, like looking at him, like almost kissing him. It was so weird. And then they like merged into a wall and disappeared. And we were just like, what was that? What happened? I think that was supposed to be a setup for later on when we learned that mirrors are like doors to Dracula and that was a mirror that they went into that went to his lair. But at the time in the movie when it happened, it was just extremely confusing.
I just think it makes no sense.
Absolutely no sense.
Like, I don't know. And this is we've talked about this before, very like hashtag written by a dude. Like Dracula is overbearing and a little bit violent. And but but suddenly like his brides are like all over him, and it's just like, can we just move on, please? Also, I just want to point out he had telekinesis at one point when he was being very assaulty on Anna, and we never see it again.
Oh yeah,
he's like, you're a puppet on my strings. Da, 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 da.
Or was that glamour? I thought that was glamour.
No, that was like very telekinesis-y. Like she had no ability to move her own body, and we never see it again.
I mean, there's one scene early on when he's talking to Victor Frankenstein in the black and white scenes.
Yeah. Which I will say, very cool stylistically, because we're hearkening back to that original Frankenstein film.
Right. Although I think it's funny that the opening scenes are black and white, and then we cut to present day, which is 1 year later.
Don't you know that was black and white times, and then they got color.
Right. Black and white times is 1887. 1888 is in color.
What a leap in technology.
Right.
I don't know. It was fun stylistically.
No. I agree. I think it's a good delineation between flashback and current story.
Sure.
But there was one part when he is talking to Victor Frankenstein about, I need to use this technology for my own plans, where he like moves his hands and then the equipment like sparks. So we see some other evidence of him having some sort of power.
Sure.
With his mind against physical objects.
This is not the first time that we have seen a character have an ability and then it just never comes back.
Yeah.
Because it happened with what's his face, Jeremy Irons in The Time Machine. He had some telekinesis powers and then nope, not again.
Only when it's convenient for the story, you know.
100%. Oh my gosh.
That's just how these things go.
Yeah.
It is how they go.
Yeah. And I want to say also in regards to this being a film of its era, there was a thing in like the early aughts where movies and even video games too, because they did this in Neverwinter Nights 2, Horde of the Underdark, where storylines would be like, hey, have you considered that maybe there are members of quote unquote evil races who maybe like aren't evil? Because Deacon Scalesinger of Neverwinter Nights 2, Horde of the Underdark, is like the kobold who's not evil and horrible. And we love him and he's precious and I will protect him with my life. And this is just the thing. I will say, Forgotten Realms has only recently begun to walk this back where they're like, oh, wait, actually, evil races seems kind of racist. Maybe we shouldn't do that.
Okay.
But like, this is a thing that happened in the era too of like, hey, you guys, maybe, just maybe, this is being a little too one-dimensional. Maybe monoliths aren't really a thing. Have you considered? And like, it's like revelatory.
Okay. How does that play in that?
Well, because like we have this whole storyline with Frankenstein's monster of like, oh, he's made by evil, but he's not controlled by evil. Maybe we don't need to kill him. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And he's my favorite character in the movie.
I love him. He's precious and he needs to be protected. I adore him.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, he's better than Carl. Frankenstein's monster is the star of this film.
Okay, he is great. I will say, he did get done a little bit dirty at the end when they just basically gave him like a log raft and a lamp. Excuse you, please give the man a proper boat.
He is a man of simple means.
Okay.
He just wants to go out on his own and explore and to live. That's what he wants. They asked him what he wants and he said he wants to exist.
Which, if you've read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, is pretty much like the heart of that book. And it is brilliant and I love it so much. And anybody who's not read it should read it.
Right. He's the best character, though, because all he wants is to live.
Yeah.
And because he thinks the most rationally throughout the entire film.
Yeah, he's great.
He has the most rational thoughts. He's like, you can't let them discover me. I am the key to life, to inanimate things. And then, so that's why he fights against Van Helsing capturing him. But then once he's out there and stuff, he's like, let me free. I'll help you. I'm not an evil monster. I'm going to help you out.
Right.
And then he's on the good guy's side. And he's the best.
He is great. He is fantastic. No notes. I'm not going to get into like all of the issues, by the way, with him being created to help Dracula's children live. There are so many biological issues with that entire part of the storyline. Like, I don't want to.
Wait. Let me read you from my notes.
Okay, go on.
Dracula science. Light on the science. Yeah, there is no even attempt at explanation as to why, because Victor Frankenstein brought his monster to life, that now the monster is the key to bringing life to other things. There is absolutely no reason. The whole thing about hooking a werewolf up to the machine to electrocute the babies and make them little baby vampires.
Which, by the way, they look more like Mephits than anything. Like, why do they have tails? Neither of their parents have tails.
I thought they were like gargoyle-ish kind of creatures.
They're kind of gargoyle-y, but gargoyles are something different. I'm really not trying to get into like, I'm really not trying to get into this, but my gosh, there are problems. Like, biologically speaking, even if we go with like marsupial rules, where like the babies are born tiny and then have to grow out of utero, there are just a lot of issues with this. And I'm not even going to get into it, but like suffice to say, this makes no sense. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we've done a lot of talking about things that don't really work in this movie.
Boy, again, this whole movie is bonkers.
Maybe let's mention a couple things that kind of did work, right? I'm going to mention some of the gags that I thought were kind of good.
Go on.
When he first walks into Transylvania, I always like the gag of the mortician measuring someone for a coffin as soon as they meet them.
I fully agree. That is a gag that will never get old.
I didn't like it as much when in a later scene the mortician like explained it.
Yeah, and we don't need you to explain it, mate.
Right, and then there was a scene where the mortician gets launched and happens to land into a grave, and his hand lands on top of the shovel and spins in a perfect way. Like, again, more insane physics of this movie.
Sure.
That was not neat. But the initial meeting of him where he's like, oh, a new person, let me measure you. Mm-hmm. That works for me very well.
And I will say, that actually happens in another film you love, which we haven't discussed yet.
Oh, really?
That happens in Back to the Future 3. I remember very little about that film, but that gag is in there as well.
Something maybe that we will talk about in the future.
Indeed. That's a teaser for y'all. Okay, fine. A thing I love. Let me just say, Anna's hair looks fresh every scene. It is perfection. The only time it's not perfection when she is suddenly and inexplicably dead.
I might actually put that as a thing that doesn't work because everyone else in this movie looks fairly normal, like a person of the time. I mean, Hugh Jackman, they give him kind of flowing hair.
He's so young in this.
He is so young. But from the very first shot, even in the black and white scenes, they show a picture of like Anna and her brother, and hers is like a glamour shot in black and white.
Uh-huh.
And then when it goes to color, the first point that I really noticed that it was back in color or in color for the first time was when they showed the introduction to Kate Beckinsale's character. Sorry, Beckinsale. There's not a D in her last name. Where they show her in this bright red, like corset and jacket outfit. She is dressed to the nines for a werewolf hunt.
Oh, her outfit is always pristine. It does not show a single mark, a single scar, no dirt, no nothing.
Even after she like flies through a wall and gets flipped 13 times and lands on her face, she looks flawless.
100%. Like there's like might be like a smudge of dirt on her cheek.
Yeah, no, I think they do like a forehead smudge.
Yeah.
For a couple scenes, but then that's gone. Yeah, it's something else.
I mean, I think we can all agree her superpower is just incredible resilience in both body and looks.
Sure, let's say that. And until she dies, of course.
Of course.
Another thing I kind of liked was that we got a good assistant fight. We got Carl versus Igor.
I didn't think about that, but you're right. That is a good assistant fight.
It's a fun trope.
It is a fun trope.
And very much a like James Bond movie kind of thing to do.
You're not wrong. I think that this movie wanted to be like a steampunk James Bond.
Absolutely it did. Another thing I think it wanted to do was the scene where they go to the masquerade ball.
Yeah.
Where there's actually a cool thing, the mirror reveal that everybody was a vampire there.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty cool. Because you see Anna and Dracula dancing, and then they cut to showing them the mirror, and the only person you see is Anna. The rest of the room is completely empty in the mirror.
Yeah.
So that's how you know that they're all vampires.
Sure.
And the public setting for this exchange was not really public. It's very much contrived by Dracula himself
100%.
to be a trap.
Yeah.
But I felt like they were trying to go for like an Eyes Wide Shut kind of vibes with the
I never saw that film.
The fire breathers and, you know, let's say trying to be very sexy with the dancing and the masquerade.
I never saw that film.
Okay.
I don't know what we're referencing.
Well, for people who have seen it, you know what I'm talking about, but they were still making this like a PG-13 movie. So they like couldn't take it very far.
Sure.
But it was just it felt kind of weird and out of place, that one scene where it's like extra trying to be sexy. and all the people in masks and the fire breathers would, and all the people around dancing and weirdly and trying. It had some kind of vibe that it was going for that felt out of place.
Here's why I think that felt out of place. And this is, again, my like theater nerdery coming into place. So the whole customization, the masks, everything else, that to me feels very like Venice, Carnival, Commedia dell'arte kind of thing. And granted, Commedia dell'arte, the masks are very specific to the characters, but they have that kind of same style where it's like mostly all white, very heavy liner around the eyes and things like that. And so I got like Venetian vibes out of it, not Carpathian court kind of vibes. So I think they were trying to just have that. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But they're near the Carpathian Mountains.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like they wanted like that sort of thing, but it's the wrong country and whatnot. But, we just do it, because it's cool and it's fun looking.
Sure. I mean,
maybe that's why it felt out of place.
I mean, Hungary has a rich history and culture but
I don't. And I mean, they were celebrating it on All Hallows Eve.
Yes.
Which is a very different celebration than Fat Tuesday / Carnival / Mardi Gras. All of these holidays that are very connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe that's why. That's all I'm saying.
This is kind of random, but you mentioned Back to the Future. I thought that the Igor character had very old Biff vibes.
Oh.
And to the point where I actually looked it up to see if it was the same person playing the character. It wasn't. It's some Australian guy, I think.
A lot of Australian actors in this.
Yes, very Australian production.
I didn't think about that, but I could see it. I could totally see it.
The voice especially, he was like talking like this, like, yeah, I'll wax the car for you, Mr. McFly.
Speaking of voices, wow, all of the accents in this film, they were strong.
I kind of didn't even try to think about it.
It was a lot.
So I know that accents out of place, I noticed a lot, and I mentioned even before.
Sure, we talked about accents a lot on here.
But this one, it was like a lot of English and Australian actors, and they were in Romania, Transylvania, Hungary. Yeah, whatever. Just do some sort of vague Eastern European accent.
Oh, we're doing a new segment where Mike does bad accents.
That was so bad.
That's fun.
Well, you did the last one, so you know.
I did. I do most of them.
Yeah. Yeah, the accents were all over the place. I didn't even try to keep them accountable or keep track.
There was like the Italian Vatican priest guy. There was all of the vampires and whatnot, all of those things. Okay, I'm going to talk about something I like.
Okay.
It isn't even like mentioned verbally, but the old windmill that goes up in flames at the very beginning of the movie.
Very steampunky with the gears everywhere.
Totally. So this ratty old windmill, this is very clearly, nobody says it, but this is very clearly like where the teenagers go to drink, because there are all these like partially finished bottles and stuff in there. It's like absinthe and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and I thought for a second, like maybe this is like where some bootleggers do their business, but the labels were really nice. And I have a whole lecture on how this era was the rise of brand recognition. So labeling was very important, but I'm not going to get into that and just say, this looks a little too sophisticated, these labels and whatnot, to be a bootlegger's hideout. I really think like a whole bunch of teenagers and stuff, all of like the local youths have come here. They've brought their booze. This is where they left it behind. And that's why it goes up like a matchstick.
The booze that they stole from their father's liquor cabinet.
100%.
Yeah. Of
like,
course.
Oh, my dad's like a liquor dealer. I just like this fell off the back of his cart.
That is great. I didn't think about that for a second, but I hope that the makers of the film like had that whole backstory and thought about it, and that's why those bottles were there and why the windmill went up in flames so easily.
And I will say, this is very much the sort of place where teenagers who are bored will come and just hang out and avoid detection in this like ratty, decrepit, condemned building.
And poor Victor Frankenstein, that's how he goes out. When he was just, doing his science and his monster came to life and tried to save him.
Yeah. His father.
Yeah.
He very, very clearly had feelings for this man as like his father and, all of that.
Victor, who reminded me of something that you and I have been watching that is a current media property, Good Omens. We've been watching that.
That reminded you of Good Omens?
It did, because the guy who played Victor, his name is Samuel West.
Sure.
I had to look it up to make sure it wasn't the same guy who plays Aziraphale in Good Omens, because he was giving off almost the exact same performance vibes as Michael Sheen in Good Omens.
Okay, I don't think anyone can compare to Michael Sheen, but this is not the place nor the time to argue. I'm going to disagree, but you know what? You do you, boo.
I don't know. I think if you'd watch those early scenes again, you would see the parallel, just the way he spoke and the way he was portraying himself, very much the same kind of vibes. But that was kind of just a random thing.
Okay.
To a thing we're watching now.
Okay, and one last thing I really liked. This is very random, but I actually really liked how clearly they loved those upside down shots of the vampires. Like, clearly someone has read like The Curse of Strahd and wants to do some like spider climbing kind of stuff, and they had a lot of upside down scenes for the vampires. I thought that was super fun. I don't know if the technology was new and they were like, oh, we should totally use this, or like, this is just fun. I don't know, but they did a lot of that.
There was a lot of that, which reminds me of the thing I want to touch on, is that there seemed to be so much gratuitous CGI.
There was a lot of CGI. I thought Mr. Hyde looked like he was from a video game. Like a video game cutscene.
Yeah, I thought that maybe like 50% of this movie looked like a video game cutscene from like 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
It was just so much, and like not even necessary to tell the story. It was like, oh, we figured out how we can do this thing now. Let's have this crazy explosion or somebody flipping and jumping all over the place, or people walking upside down.
I am very curious to know, like, because for instance, Kate Beckinsale does a lot of like acrobatic moves where she's like, you know, swinging on a cable and then doing a flip and grabbing another cable. I'm very curious to know, is that CGI? Is that stunt people doing their thing? I genuinely don't know.
A good question. Probably some combination. You know, we really should get the Corridor crew on this. They're the guys to break it down.
There you go. Yeah. You subscribe to that channel, so let me know if they do.
Yeah, I'll hit them up. Tell them that we need to do a crossover
Sounds
where we
great.
talk about the CGI in steampunk films.
Perfect.
The one other thing I want to talk to you about was the werewolf lore in this film.
Uh-huh.
One of the many monster lore things that are brought in.
Yeah.
Is there a thing in werewolf lore where a werewolf is in full werewolf mode because of the full moon, but then a cloud comes over the moon and they turn back into a human, and then the cloud goes away and they're back into a werewolf?
Okay.
Because that's what this movie does.
I am not aware of that in like any like old school lore. I actually like this mechanic though, because I like the sort of chaoticness it adds. It kind of makes a werewolf feel less overpowered.
Okay.
So I like this, but I don't think that this lives in it. Like, honestly, old werewolf lore is pretty basic.
Mm-hmm.
There's basically like, oh, you get bitten by a werewolf, or there are a couple other ways that you could possibly turn into a werewolf. But like, full moon, you're a wolf. You don't remember, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You're a beast, blah. Or actually, fun fact, there are a couple of variations on the werewolf lore. There's the loup-garou, which is sort of a Louisiana version, which, by the way, I'm disappointed that the Pelicans did not name themselves the loup-garou, because that was an option back when they were polling people for what they should name their team, and they didn't choose it, and I think that's bad on their part.
For those that don't know, that is the NBA franchise, the New Orleans, now Pelicans, that they were choosing a new name because they were previously the Hornets. But that's from when they were in North Carolina. They moved to New Orleans and changed their name to the Pelicans.
Well, they were looking at loup-garou and they really missed a trick there.
Maybe so, but Pelican seems fun.
Whatever. Pelicans aren't that scary.
Are you kidding? Do you
I would fight a pelican. I would fight a pelican.
I think you would lose.
Okay, well, you can put money on it and then we can see.
Oh my goodness. The first ever steam-powered movies pay-per-view, Dana versus a pelican.
I would crush that pelican as long as it wasn't endangered.
I don't know. Maybe do some more research on pelicans before you go picking a fight with them.
Birds are vicious and birds are scary, but I feel like I could take it on.
I don't know, Dana.
Okay.
They're pretty mean and powerful.
I know. They got big old beaks.
They sure do.
But anyway, so there's the loup-garou, and there's also an Irish werewolf legend where they're actually kind of, let's say, like spiritual protectors of certain families. And they also leave fish on the windowsills of the poor so that the poor can have food to eat. And I think that's really beautiful. So werewolf lore is varied and whatnot. But again, it's fairly straightforward. This is very much an invention of Hollywood.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. Yeah, and for some reason Dracula has the cure to werewolf.
Because why not? And it's kept in acid, which apparently didn't hurt the glass and metal syringe that it was in.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes physics sense for sure.
Totes.
Yeah.
Oh my gracious.
Consistent with the science of the rest of the film.
You're not wrong.
For sure.
Yeah. And I will say too, that was some Lion King level cloud work at the very end where like we see like Kate Beckinsale and her brother like in the clouds and her whole family. That was very like Mufasa, remember who you are.
Yeah. I actually kind of like the ending.
Yeah?
A bit because,
all right.
Usually these movies, how they go is the hero character meets the female character and they have a thing for each other, which in this film, I mean, I'll kind of give it to them. Kate Beckinsale sees Hugh Jackman and she's like, well, you're a 10. The rest of this film, everyone else in the cast is like a 7 at best.
Look, to be fair, Hugh Jackman, he's kind of up there with Idris Elba. Like, he's just attractive no matter who you are or what you're into.
Yeah, and he sees Kate Beckinsale and they see each other and they're like, okay, we kind of belong together in this, circle of people
here. We're on
here.
The same level.
Yeah, we're on the same level. But at the end of this film, she dies instead of them ending up together.
I do appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I don't love that she dies, but I suppose it's better than the corny, this is what the movie requires, so of course you're going to end up together.
Right, but it closes the loop on the story of her family. Instead of being all about her and her love interest, it's about the family fulfilling their destiny and getting their reward in the afterlife. And that's kind of cool. And then Frankenstein's monster gets to go free on his little paddleboard that might support his weight for a few miles.
Debatable.
We don't know.
But that's all right.
And then Van Helsing / Gabriel, who we learn later on, another Good Omens tie-in, that he ends up being the angel Gabriel come to Earth.
I don't know that he's the angel Gabriel. I don't know. That's all very unclear.
They call him the right hand of God or the left hand.
Okay.
Is it left hand or right hand?
I think it was left hand.
Left hand, whatever. He's one of the hands.
I don't know.
So
this
maybe he was formerly an
sus.
angel. They didn't flesh out the backstory too much.
No, they didn't.
And hand wave a lot of it.
Yes, they did.
Wave on past.
Anyway.
Just as you were.
Yeah.
These aren't the backstories you're looking for.
Okay, final thing I will say I liked. I do think that the vampire site where it's looking at like body heat and heartbeat, I thought that was a kind of cool detail. I dig it.
I must have missed that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, it was happening in the fight between Anna and the final vampire bride, where you saw her vision and you saw like the body heat and you saw like the heart beating in like the center of her chest. So I thought that was very cool. And Dracula also earlier in the film talks about how he can hear people's heartbeats and he can like, this is a bit corny, but like he can tell a person's character or whatever from their heartbeat, whatever. Well,
and Van Helsing's was very slow. His heartbeat was slow. Chill. He was not fearful or intimidated by Dracula.
But that was just kind of a cool feature.
Sure.
So
yeah,
that's all I have on stuff I liked.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've reached that point.
Yeah.
We rate films not according to any critical standards.
No, indeed.
We are not professional film critics by any measure. But firstly, we rate films based on how steampunk they are. So on a scale of 1 to 5 steam engines, Dana, how steampunk do you think this film is?
I do think it's like 5 of 5 steam engines.
Really?
I do. Because like you had all of these little gadgets. Frankenstein's monster's knees were like steam powered. You saw like little things. We have Tesla coils everywhere. I don't know that, impressive lightning storms are like a normal thing in the Carpathians, but maybe the huge, amazing Tesla coils like drew the lightning to it. I don't know. There was a lot of very cool steampunk stuff. We had corsets. We had like all of the, pretty typical steampunk garb regalia.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
The time period is right. Yeah. For sure.
I mean, all of the different technological things. So I give it 5 out of 5. I stand by that.
You know, I would dock it 1,
Yeah?
actually.
Why?
No airships.
Oh my gosh. Are you turning into like a steampunk purist on me?
I mean, not a complete purist, but if you're going to say 5 out of 5, then that means pure steampunk.
I'm giving it 5 out of 5, and I stand by what I said.
To me, it's not pure steampunk without some sort of airship or flying ship, something more futuristic.
Okay.
Based on steam power. I'll give you the gadgets are awesome. We had the monster. Not a whole lot of steam happening, really. So I would say 4, but that's strong, right?
Can I give you one phrase, and maybe it'll sway you?
Sure.
The evil Ewoks wore goggles. You know, like Dracula's little minions.
Mm-hmm. Can we meet in the middle? 4.5.
Fine, 4.5.
4.5 steam engines. You heard it here, folks. That is the steampunk rating for Van Helsing. And then we also rate the films, again, not based on any kind of critical standards. How much did we enjoy this film? This is going to be kind of complicated, I think. I think it's going to be kind of complicated, Dana.
Oh, gracious.
On a scale of 1 to 5 gears, how much did you enjoy this watching of the movie Van Helsing?
I'm going to be generous because, as I said, it's a very fun drinking film. If you want to get a little bit tipsy and just watch a film that's extremely silly, I will give it 3 gears for that. If you're not drinking, though, it's a 2 for sure.
You know, I think I completely agree with you. My scale is 1 to 5 top hats. I give it a solid 3.5 top hats.
What? Why are you bumping it up?
I don't know.
You're being extremely generous.
I am being so generous. It was fun to make fun of, and I don't know. It
is a good film to have a good laugh over.
At no point was I having a bad time.
Sure.
While also I recognized that a lot of it didn't make sense and it wasn't very good.
Yeah. But as you say, you weren't having a bad time at any point.
At no point was I having a bad time.
That's fair.
So I got to give it 3.5.
Okay.
And it's not going to quite meet 4 because that means like it was a good movie.
Aww.
So I'm going to say 3.5 top hats for me.
Okay.
And that's what we thought of the movie Van Helsing. And if you want to tell us what you thought of this movie or other movies, you can tweet at us or X at us.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever it's called.
It's still Twitter. Let's be honest. Everyone is still calling it Twitter. Literally, Elon Musk is the only one trying to make X a thing.
On Twitter, we are at SteamPoweredPod, or you can hit us up on Threads or Instagram at SteamPoweredMovies. You can go to steampoweredmovies.com for more information about this and past or future episodes. We want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you like it, please leave a review on your platform of choice and join us next time for another episode about another steampunk movie. Thanks and have a great day. Okay, bye.
Bye. I'm doing an audio test. I'm testing the audio.
I am also testing the audio.
I am audio of testing.
I am testing of audio the.
What is happening?